6 games in 10 days. That's the gauntlet Indiana must run before even reaching the Commissioner's Cup final. Now set for July 1st against the Lynx. Tonight's 5th stop drops the Fever into a sold-out Chase Center, where the Golden State Valkyries have weaponized every seat into a wall of noise. Their fan base already helped push the expansion squad above .500, and they came tonight with one mission: derail Caitlin Clark at any yet. The crowd is only half the problem. All season, pundits have whispered that referees are letting the rookie sensation earn respect the hard way, a polite code for swallowed whistles and late calls. Whether that's league strategy or simple incompetence, the result is the same. Clark and a travel-worn Fever roster walk into a perfect storm of fatigue, hostility, and doubt. But storms are where lightning strikes best. Before this night is over, Clark can't, the unexpected enforcer, standing shoulder to shoulder with her, will turn every jeer into stunned silence. The schedule that broke the camel's back. The Indiana Fever didn't just hit a rough patch on the calendar. They ran straight into a brick wall. Between June 21st and June 30th, the league wedged 6 games into a 10-day window, forcing players to bounce from Indianapolis to Seattle, back to Indiana, then on to San Francisco, all before even thinking about the Commissioner's Cup. Final set for July 1st against the Minnesota Lynx. Fever. Veteran voices around the league have blasted the grind as borderline reckless, pointing out that an expanded 40-game season already stretches rosters thin and spikes injury risk. Those same demands now sit on the bargaining table in the WNBA's high-stakes CBA talks, where players are pushing for tighter travel protocols, longer recovery windows, and real input on scheduling.nypost.com sports. Yet while negotiations crawl, the Fever are living the problem in real time. Clark logging 38-minute nights. Sophie Cunningham icing both knees before halftime, and assistant coach Carlos Knox openly worrying they'll arrive at the Cup final running on fumes. The unspoken fear that the league's brightest new draw might burn out before she even lifts a trophy. But exhaustion was only the opening act. Valkyries Coliseum and the first cheap shot Chase Center roared like a gladiator pit the moment Indiana stepped onto the floor. The Golden State Valkyries, barely 2 months into their inaugural season, had already stormed above .500, and by fans were treating every home date like a playoff elimination game. Seats sold out weeks in advance. Marketing partners plastered "Vote the Vox" banners across the concourse. And local headlines bragged that the expansion squad's early surge was the best since 1999. That feverish energy quickly turned hostile. From the opening tip, a wall of boos followed Caitlin Clark on every dribble, while "Stay out the paint" chants rattled the hardwood. The Valkyries' game plan matched the crowd's mood. Swarm Clark with a rotating triple team, body check on screens, and dare the officials to blow the whistle. It took less than 3 minutes for the first cheap shot to land a shoulder jab, right under her ribs as she cut through the lane. The whistle stayed silent, and the building erupted as if foul immunity had been granted for the night. Clark grimaced, regrouped, and demanded the inbound. But the precedent was set. Golden State would play past the edge, and the referees were going to let them. Every no-call poured gasoline on an officiating controversy that had already dominated sports talk radio all week, with analysts accusing the league of letting stars earn respect the hard way. The Valkyries smelled blood, and Indiana, still nursing travel-heavy legs, had to decide whether to match brute force or outsmart it. The next possession would reveal their answer. Offensive gridlock. Clark versus triple teams. Indiana's first real problem wasn't the crowd. It was their own clogged half-court. Golden State funneled everything Clark's way, flashing a third defender the moment she crossed mid-court. Passing angles vanished. Spacing shrank to a phone booth. Every possession felt like a timed puzzle. Clark had 5 seconds to dribble out of traffic, pivot, and somehow locate a teammate who'd barely moved at all. On the right wing, her lead pull-up spot, she twice tried to buy a sliver of daylight with a hesitation dribble. Both times, the extra defender slid across, daring her to force a bad shot. She kicked to the corner, but the release came late, rattling out. The next trip, she called for a flare screen. Nothing materialized. Shot clock bled under 5, and Clark had to hoist a leaning 30-footer that kissed only iron. Golden State capitalized immediately, sprinting the other way for back-to-back threes that pushed the gap to 9. The Fever bench was suddenly quiet. Assistant Carlos Knox paced, shaking his head at every flat-footed cut that never happened. Clark pounded her chest, signaling move, but the legs just weren't there. Long travel weeks translate to slow cuts and half-speed curls. By the first timeout, Clark had logged 4 shots, 0 makes, and 1 bruised rib from that early cheap shot. The stat line screamed trouble, yet her eyes stayed ruthless, searching for the one adjustment that could detonate the Valkyries' plan. As the huddle broke, a single substitution loomed at the scorer's table, ready to flip the geometry of the floor and Indiana's fortunes. Enter Sophie Cunningham. The spark Indiana stole in February, the scorer's horn blared, and the entire geometry of the floor changed. Sophie Cunningham acquired in a 14 February blockbuster that cost Indiana a first-round pick in hometown. Star Nolissa Smith strode onto the court, ponytail whipping like a warning flag. Fever Brass had chased her for 2 off-seasons, convinced her fearless rebounding and microwave three-point streaks were the missing fuse for Clark's fireworks. Tonight, that fuse crackled to life in seconds. On her very first touch, Cunningham skipped into the left corner, waited just long enough to freeze the rotating help, then drilled a catch-and-shoot triple that sliced the deficit in half. Golden State's bench stood, shouting assignments, but she was already sprinting back, clapping once louder, it seemed, than the sold-out arena. The next Indiana possession, Clark jab-stepped, dragged 2 defenders into the paint, and kicked. To the wing, same result. Net, snap, roar. Suddenly the Valkyries' triple team looked reckless. Every extra body sent at Clark left Cunningham wide open and hungry. Her impact wasn't just buckets. On a missed Valkyries layup, Cunningham flew in from the weak side, ripped the rebound away from a 6'5" center, and roared, "Let's go." A battle cry that yanked the Fever bench to its feet. Golden State tried muscling back, but the Missouri native has a black belt in Taekwondo and the attitude to match. Bump her once and she hits you twice as hard. The-Sun.com that enforcer reputation was forged only 8 nights earlier, when she ragdolled J.C. Sheldon for poking Clark in the eye and then torched the league's officials for leaving. Stars to fend for themselves. Now, every Valkyrie shove drew a glare from Cunningham, and every glare gave Clark an extra heartbeat to dissect the floor. A lightning-fast skip pass found Lexie Hull for a corner 3. The next trip, Clark turned a fake look into a bullet feed that let Cunningham bury her 3rd triple in 4 tries. In less than 4 minutes, Indiana flipped a 9-point hole into a 3-point lead. And the Chase Center crowd so deafening moments. A ghost started mumbling at the referees for whistles that never came. Golden State had poked the wrong tandem, and the dirtier the game grew, the hotter that tandem burned. Lexie Hull gets smacked. The revenge run begins the moment Golden State's forward lost her cool and spiked the ball off Lexie Hull's head. Everything snapped into place for Indiana. The cheap shot so blatant, even the nosebleed seats saw it should have earned an ejection. Instead, the refs whistled a harmless side-out and Chase Center howled its approval. Hull rubbed her temple, but she didn't flinch. She slid to the corner, signaled thumbs up, and waited. Clark caught the inbound, dribbled once, twice, forcing the triple team to collapse, then whipped a no-look dart across the lane. Hull's release was pure silk. Splash. Crowd stunned. Golden State hurried the next possession, bricked a rushed 3, and Cunningham yanked down the rebound as if it were a personal insult. Clark sprinted ahead, eyes scanning like radar. Drew the defense to the left block and shoved past to Hull trailing wide open on the right wing. Same spot, same result. Net rip, deficit erased. Fever by 3. Indiana's bench erupted, pounding the hardwood so hard the broadcast mics rattled. The Valkyries doubled down on force, hammering screens, bumping cutters, yet every shove fed the Fever's fire. Cunningham dove for a loose ball, slid across the paint, and kicked it out to Clark, who threaded a laser to Aaliyah Boston for a lead-in. Next trip, Clark sold a hesitation, split 2 defenders, and tossed a lob that Boston hammered home. Indiana's run ballooned 215-2 in barely 4 minutes, and the boos that once drowned the arena twisted into panicked murmurs. But Golden State wasn't finished throwing elbows, and the officials still kept their whistles holstered. The question hanging over the hardwood now: how much dirtier could this get before somebody finally stepped in, or before Indiana finished the job themselves? When officials lose control, whistle felt like a coin toss, and more often than not, the refs pocketed the coins. With Indiana's lead hovering at 6, Golden State dialed up the body blows. A shoulder touch bump sent Clark skidding across the floor. No call. Cunningham chest bumped the offender, daring her to swing back. Instead, the Valkyries guard grinned and muttered something the lip readers on social media later called worth the fine. Still no call. ESPN's sideline. Mike caught assistant coach Carlos Knox shouting, "We need protection, not patience." A line that lit X ablaze within minutes. Viewers clipped replays side by side with last week's eye poke fiasco, screaming that the league's officials were turning player safety into a running joke. Sports law podcasters floated the word negligence before halftime even ended. On court, the chaos snowballed. Valkyries forward, Nia Harper swung an offhand elbow that glanced Sophie's jaw. Cunningham staggered, then answered with a picture-perfect box-out that flattened Harper on the rebound. The whistle finally blew offensive foul on Sophie. Chase Center thundered approval. Cunningham just laughed, tapping her wrist like check the clock. Ref sure about out of time. Clark seized the inbound, raced coast to coast through a swirling mess of hands, and flipped a finger roll over to collapsing defenders. The basket counted plus the foul at last, but the damage was done. Players on both sides now trusted fists more than whistles. Commentators wondered aloud how much longer sponsors would tolerate highlight reels packed with forearms and missed calls. And as the third quarter ticked under 2 minutes, Fatigue tightened around Indiana's legs. One sloppy turnover, then another, cut the lead to a single point. The arena sensed blood, rising into a deafening chant. Vox in 6. Vox in 6. While the officiating crew huddled at midcourt, finally aware they'd lost control of their own game, yet even in the bedlam, Clark kept calculating and the next possession would reveal her boldest adjustment of the night. Clutch calculus, and the Commissioner's Cup countdown clock emerged from the timeout looking less like a rookie than a chess grandmaster who'd finally mapped every square on the board. She waved Boston to the weak side, dragged Cunningham into a high stagger screen, and just as the triple team lunged, slipped a bounce pass behind her back to Lexie Hull, slicing baseline. Lay-in, plus the foul, and the Valkyries chant died mid-syllable. Golden State tried switching to zone. Clark answered with skip-pass lasers that bent the coverage until it snapped. When they sagged under screens, she punished them with a 15-footer, her first mid-range attempt all night, perfectly timed to reset her shooting rhythm. 3 possessions later, she used the exact same motion, only this time flicking the ball cross-court before her feet hit the floor. Cunningham caught, pumped, sidestepped, swish. The lead climbed back to 7, but Clark was already plotting for moves ahead. She slowed the pace just enough to steal oxygen, motioning for rookie bench guard Kate Martin to spell Cunningham on defense. The subtle rotation kept fresh legs on the shooter's wing, while Clark hunted mismatches in surgical silence. No wasted dribbles, no forced heat checks, only percentages and geometry. Indiana's offense became math class, and Golden State kept failing the quiz. Off the ball, Fever fans online noticed a different kind of calculus. Every time Clark and Cunningham huddled, they pointed toward next summer's free agency banners, now hanging in the rafters, teasing the rumor that Indiana will chase Breanna Stewart to stack a future super. Whether wishful thinking or inside intel, the speculation rocketed across social feeds, nudging the narrative from tonight's brawl to a looming arms race that could reshape the entire league. Meanwhile, real-time stakes were piling higher. Once this West Coast slugfest ends, Indiana must fly south to face A'ja Wilson's Aces, then pivot straight into the Commissioner's Cup final against a rested Minnesota Lynx squad. A 3-game gauntlet in 5 days, with Clark logging 40 minutes, nights and bruises mounting by the quarter. The television analysts called it schedule malpractice. Clark called it another chance to prove we can solve any problem. The clock slid under 4 minutes. Indiana by 4. Fatigue clawed at calves and shoulders, but Clark's eyes stayed electrocuting every hedge, every late closeout, every desperate gamble. She knew the next 2 possessions could bury the Valkyries, steal momentum for Vegas, and set the tone for a trophy run that no exhaustion, no whistle-swallowing crew, and no hostile arena could derail. Every aspirations, revenge, arcs, fragility, fantasies now hinged on the closing minute still to come. Shock ending in San Francisco, 64 seconds left. Indiana clings to a 2-point edge that feels thinner than tissue paper. Clark dribbles at half court, burning precious clock, while the Valkyries flash a soft trap. She feints left, crosses right, the same move that diced them all night, then rifles a pass to Cunningham, who's hugged so tightly her jersey stretches. Sophie pivots, tries to feed Boston on a dive, but the ball is tipped, skitters loose, and Golden State pounces. Fast break, layup, tie game, 37 seconds. Carlos Knox signals one shot. Clark waves him off. Exhaustion screams at her quads, but she sees the Valkyries scrambling to match up. She wants the dagger now. High screen, hop step, rise from 25 feet, release, looks perfect. The arena inhales. Clang, back iron, rebound ricochets long and somehow lands in a rookie's hands. Valkyries race ahead. 4 on 3, dish to the corner, splash, crowd detonation. Golden State by 3 with 7.4 seconds. Timeout, Indiana. Huddle is a blur of heavy breaths and wide eyes. They draw up the equalizer, double stagger for Cunningham. Clark as decoy. Out of the break, the play unravels. Golden State switches everything, smothers Sophie, and Clark has to flash back for the ball near the logo with 3 seconds left. One dribble, off balance, 30-footer front rim, kiss, roll, off horn, confetti cannons fire. Valkyries steal it, 92-90, and Chase Center feels like a fault line cracking wide open. Cunningham slaps Clark's back, muttering, "Cup final." We flip the script. Clark nods once, jaw clenched, then turns to the officials for a quiet, icy comment the cameras never catch. The walk to the tunnel is a gauntlet of jeers, but somewhere behind those boos is the electrified silence of 18,000. People who know they just witnessed a rivalry's birth. Beat up, not beaten, Indiana leaves San Francisco bruised, furious and very much alive. The brutal schedule exposed their legs. The refs exposed the league's growing pains, and Golden State exposed every lazy cut and late rotation. Yet the night also revealed the combustible power of Clark Cunningham Hull, a trio that can erase 9-point deficits in 4 minutes and turn cheap shots into highlight runs. Now the Fever board a red eye to Vegas. Eyes on A'ja Wilson, body taped like patchwork. 48 hours later comes the Commissioner's Cup Final, a national showcase the league cannot afford to tarnish with swallowed whistles. Will the WNBA protect its marquee star? Will exhaustion topple Indiana before the trophy's even polished? Stick around, because if tonight proved anything, it's that storms only make lightning strike brighter. Feel free to subscribe if you're riding this roller coaster with us. The fireworks are just getting started.